Good afternoon, everyone. For this match, we'll be following the Oxford-Oregon debate. And today, our motion will be this House believes that graduates should pay for their university education. Before you start your argument, please introduce yourself and your preferred pronouns.
I'm Ansi Balubal, and my pronouns would be he or him.
My name is Shakil Zamora Durian. From the negative side, my pronoun would be he and him.
To start, may we have the first speaker for the affirmative side? Here.
As I start, may I start with this? There is no doubt that tertiary education is so expensive. There are many people point out that the course fees should be paid by the graduates themselves rather than the society because the advantages of possessing a degree certificate receives the person and not the community in which she or he belongs to. And I strongly agree this standpoint since the benefit solely goes to the students. To begin with, when the student graduates complete their course successfully, they would be easily employed by various companies. In other words, by securing a well-paid job. They would be able to pay bills and enhance their standard of life. For example, doctors, engineers, and lawyers are hugely salaried and their life is so full of luxury. Therefore, it has been thought that it is necessary to provide free education to the degree holders as this is a contribution of taxpayers which can be better spent on much pressing areas. Another fact is that while students are encouraged to pay their fees after securing a work permit, this would motivate them to study harder, find a position, and this trend would minimize the non-interested candidates' entry to the university. Eventually, the authority requires to offer a financial support for these talented aspirants only for a short time. After that, they could repay it back. For instance, in Australia, the university-going pupils are funded by the government, and once they enter the job sector, the funds should be paid back. In conclusion, people have a different opinion on providing free education to the tertiary level aspirants. I totally agree with this view as the benefit of the study solely goes to the person. It is highly recommended that this system should be adopted by the world nations. And that would conclude my speech.
Thank you. Your constructive speech lasted for 2 minutes. Now you are given maximum of 3 minutes for the interpolation. Here.
So, Mr. Affirmative Speaker, you're saying that you support the graduates, they should pay the cost of their education. That's right, correct? You're muted.
Yes, that's right.
So, what about those people who can't afford? Who can't afford college, like they are in that lower income level of kind of family or something. What about them? Do you know that they can't even go to school because of these worries that they will pay eventually the tuition fees and such, like the miscellaneous fees of the school, and they are worried that they can't finish school because of those fees or those costs. What about them?
There would be uh, alternative programs in the government, such as TESDA, as one such.
So, what kind of alternative?
The TESDA is a free, almost a program that is already paid by the government in exchange for, and they seek something for exchange for their free education.
So you're saying that TESDA will provide the support that
Yes.
the college graduate needed in order to finish the education.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that they won't be paying anything. So you're actually stating that you are not against free education. You are actually supporting it, right? Correct?
No, what I said, TESDA is a government-paid program, and our motion says that universities and students should pay their university education in a university.
Isn't that contradict the TESDA's purpose on free education and your side?
No, it
Because
is not.
you're stating that TESDA is having a free education. Meanwhile, you are affirming that graduates should pay their higher education. Isn't that contradict your whole point?
Let me repeat again a point that in a university, aspirants would be encouraged to enroll in this university even if they are able to. If they are able to.
Miss Moderator, can I ask how many minutes do I have time left?
You have 15 seconds more.
So last question. Given that TESDA has giving students free education, why is there a need for the graduates who has attained TESDA's
Time's
free
up.
education to pay?
Sorry. Time's up.
Okay. I may now start my speech. May I?
Um, the we have the negative side for constructive speech for 5 minutes. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are a third world country. This house believes that graduates should pay the cost of their university. But I say the law provides the cover of the payment for fees. The Republic Act number 10931, or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, is a law that covers the tuition and fees of students enrolled in 112 state universities and colleges, 78 local universities and colleges, and all technical vocation education and training programs registered under the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or like my affirmative side said, TESDA. Each of us has a different opportunities and chance in terms of financial and at the very same time the capability. Graduates should not be required to pay the full cost of education. Why? That is because if university students have to pay upfront the full amount of tuition fee for each semester or term, this fee could be too expensive and will deter many young people from going to the university. In 2017, PSA conducted a survey that is called the APIS, or the Annual Poverty Children and Youth. The results showed out of those 39.2 million people, 17.9% are out of school because of the high cost education or the financial concern. One reason why students drop out is because they do not have the ability to pay the tuition all 4 years, much less after the graduation. Getting rid of tuition would eliminate this reason for not graduating. This would also serve to improve college graduation rates, as fewer students would feel the need to drop to part-time status or take a break from education for financial reason. Besides, SHED officer in charge said that there are 40 billion pesos that has been allotted for the first year of implementation of the law. And it baffles me that a graduate should pay back the fees of the school when a current law like this that would help those less fortunate to get into a university and community college exists. By negating the large bill of a college education, we could see an increase in the number of students able to attend college. That's a fact. This then creates a more well-educated workforce and a population that has better in terms of critical thinking skills. And this could lead to more innovations in all areas of society without worrying any bills and cost of the tertiary education. College and graduates would be more comfortable on choosing their courses, whether it is the influence of our parents or knowing you need to pay the fees back as quickly as possible. Current students are often guided towards practical majors that have a more lucrative post-graduation income. If shelling out thousands upon thousands of pesos is no longer a factor, parents and students might feel more relaxed about studying for majors that don't necessarily have a large paycheck associated with them. Interest and enjoyment from a field study goes a long way in helping students stick with it and avoid burning out. What I'm telling everyone is that The reason why tertiary education should be free is because if the government chooses not to spend on money on free education, they will see rising expenditures on the other areas. For example, a less educated workforce bears a higher risk of unemployment in the economic downturn, and thus the government's coffers for unemployment aid would need to increase. Furthermore, unskilled labor earns much less than college graduate people do, and thus they contribute less income tax, less revenues for the government, and not to mention the highly skilled population is essential to any country's economic growth in the long run. And that conclude my constructive speech. Thank you.
Your constructive speech lasted for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, may we have your interpolation? You have 3 minutes maximum. Here.
Okay. So as I start, first question. I mean clarification. So do students, I mean, what instances were students paid a full amount upfront in the school? Is there any
The,
instance, I mean?
Before this law, the RA 10931, they would pay upfront of the down payment of the tuition fees and the whole and the semester fees and the term fees and every single details in terms of universities or in colleges.
But in schools like in St. Louis, where they don't really pay upfront, instead a quarterly based fees, which is divided into four, the full amount is divided into 4 quarters.
University of St. Louis, considering the amount of tuition fees that students would need to pay, it is logical to make it quarterly to pay the fees because it is a private institution in the first place. Private institution relies on the tuition fees of the student because where would the money come from a private institute?
So it's okay for students to pay for their tuition. That's what you said.
No, I'm saying is that private institution has their very own way of doing things because St. Louis for a fact is an autonomous school. I even personally experienced being on an autonomous school, and like I said, they have their very own way in terms of disciplining the student in terms of economic status and such. But what I'm saying is that education should be free, but we can always attend to those private institutions if we have the means or the money, but we will always have the choice for a free education in terms of colleges and universities that is deployed by that law.
Okay, thank you for that. So going back to that statement of yours where education should be free, may I ask you what does the negative side think? Is education a right or a privilege?
It is a right and a privilege at the same time. It will become a right when you didn't even attain that certain amount of level where you didn't graduate. If you're undergraduate, you have the right of education. When you are graduate of that certain course, you have the privilege and the knowledge that is given to you by that course. So it is privilege and right at the very same time.
Okay. So that's all the questions I have for the interpolation.
Thank you.
Okay, then we may start our rebuttal speech. Affirmative side, you have 4 minutes max. Here.
So going back to the interpolation that we had discussed a while ago, in regards to the paying upfront of fees and the down payment. So I just wanted to clarify that some universities would require also an payment for an upfront payment, but there's so much excuse me, a lot of other schools that the that would like St. Louis just instead give out quarterly fees, and Also, in the negative side, where fees can be arguably too big for other students, let us also understand that these fees also serve their own purpose, which could be used for improvement of the school, more buildings, more facilities, more computers for the computer lab in the school, and also let us not rely on the government too much for everything, because especially nowadays where there's a pandemic going on, the government would prioritize of course, our safety, which means vaccination and other necessities for the nation. That's it. I'm done with my speech.
Okay, now we may have the negative side for his rebuttal speech. You also have 4 minutes max. Here.
So, like I said earlier, students will always have a choice for a free education, which is where the universities and colleges are. If you do not have the money for private institution like the St. Louis, then the law will help you then the law will help you where the law will give you free tertiary education with, for example, CSU is under that kind of law where free tertiary education was implemented. So the affirmative side said earlier that we should not always rely on the government, which is I can partially agree on. But there is this thing called government subsidy or somewhere close to that. So as long as that thing exists, we will always have a choice to take it or leave it. Students shouldn't pay the full cost of their own university studies. The affirmative side failed to realize that nowadays there have a lot of students have problems about money when they intend to enter their universities. They have to leave their dream to enter the university or have to work. That is some instances. So so if the state can provide students a free higher education, it can help them to perform their dream by entering the university and create their bright future career. I personally don't think that students should pay the full cost of their own university studies rather than have free higher education provided by the state. In conclusion, graduates who had a free education allows them to learn what they enjoy most and are best at. It can ensure better allocation of the human resource. Furthermore, it can reduce unemployment costs in the economic downturn, increase government tax revenue, and increase economic growth in the long run. Thus, I completely disagree that graduates should pay the cost of their university. Because who would be responsible in the economic future? Who would be responsible in any of us future? It would be those who are graduates, it would be those who are in youth, it would be those who are children that will futurely lead us into our very own path. That's all I want to say in my rebuttal speech. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, debaters, and that would conclude our debate.
Um,